Hello everyone, and welcome back to The Elegant Edit and to another book recap and review. This is my second one that I'm doing, and my first book recap and review was on It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. I will link it below. I'm kind of getting into the swing of things with book reviews. I've never really done this before, so I'm trying to find the best way to do it because that video was quite long. But I'm going to try and keep it on the shorter side today, and we are reviewing Happy Place by Emily Henry. So this is a book that my friend Katie on YouTube and Instagram, if you don't follow her, definitely give her a follow. I'll put her username on the screen now, but she is the one who recommended this book to me. And I'm starting, basically, if you don't know, I'm getting back into reading again after many years of not really reading. And it has been so fun and amazing. I started this journey with It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, which was quite a dark book to get back into reading with, but it was really good, and I am definitely a lover of romance stories, so that's kind of the genre that I'm probably most going to gravitate toward. But I also like mysteries. I like murder mysteries. I like poetry. I like autobiographies, self-help and self-growth books. So kind of a whole array of things, but mostly romance. So that is what this book is kind of about. But more than anything, I think what I like about this book is it's not just about romance. This book, in my eyes, is about relationships in general, because this book focuses on a romantic relationship, friendships, and family relationships. So it kind of tackles all three of those in one really great book. I think overall, I would give this book 4 out of 5 stars. I would say it was really good. I really enjoyed it. It's a much lighter read. I think that Emily Henry books, from what I understand, again, I've only read this one from her. I do plan to read more, but from what it seems like, from what people say, her books are very light, easy reads. They're nothing too complicated, nothing too intense. There's a bit of drama, of course, but nothing so intense. So for me, after reading a darker book, this was something really nice to pick up. And I like her writing style. I think it's a bit more mature than other romance writers, I think, or at least the books that I used to read when I was in high school, definitely much more mature than that. In this book, the characters are supposed to be around 30 years old, so definitely more mature in that sense as well. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. So I will get into more about like what this book is about, and then I will get into a few spoilers later on, and I will let you know before I spoil anything, so you can turn off the video, but make sure to come back after you've read this book. Okay, so let's dive into what this book is about. So first of all, the cover is so cute. I am currently in the UK, so I think the cover is different in different parts of the world. In the US, I think it's different. So yeah, this is what the UK cover looks like, and it's really cute. Another way that I've been also finding different authors and different books to read is by literally reading these little like mini, I don't know what you'd call them, but like little reviews from similar authors. So Colleen Hoover's on here, and there are different authors that I would imagine I would like their stories as well. So yeah, I'm really excited. But anyway, this book is called Happy Place, and basically it is about a couple who is described as the perfect couple, Harriet and Wynne, and they have been together for 8 years. They are actually engaged. And you know, all of their friends, like everyone in their friend group has kind of known them to always be a couple. They're always together, but they have a friend group. It's basically a group of, I think there's 6 of them in total, 5 or 6 of them, and every year they go to this cottage in Maine. One of the friends' fathers, does that make sense? One of the friends' fathers owns the cottage in Maine, and all of them go every single year to that cottage just to have a nice friend like trip. And this year the father is selling that cottage, so this is the last time all of these friends get to come together to go to this cottage and enjoy this last trip together. And the only issue is that Harriet and Wynne have broken up 5 months ago, and they haven't told any of their friends. So essentially this book is kind of about the two of them making a pact that they would pretend they were still together so that they didn't ruin the trip for the rest of their friends. And the story kind of goes on from there. Another thing to note is that we kind of are in the past and present in this book. So I like that Emily Henry, I'll try and show you an example. So for example, right here, one of the chapters starts with happy place, and a few of the chapters do actually. And happy place is usually in the past when they were still together. And then the chapters that say real life are present day, when they're no longer together. So the chapters kind of start that way, so that it kind of lets you know if you're going to be reading about the past or present, which is really nice, because I think maybe sometimes if authors don't make that clear, it could be quite confusing and you're like, is this the past? Is it the present? But I like the way she did that. It was a really cute way of doing it, and it kind of shows that her happy place, Harriet, because this is from her point of view, was with Win, and with their friends in the cottage. So it's a really cute idea. I will try and see, I have like all my notes on my phone, so I will read you the non-spoiler things and just my thoughts on it. And I thought that the way I would do this video is by talking about things sorry, there's a siren outside. Things that I liked about the book, and then things I didn't like so much. So I'm gonna get into the things that I really liked about the book first. So I have my notes right here. So first and foremost, I love that this book, as I said, it is not just about a romantic relationship. More than anything, this book was about friendship. So the main three friends in the book are Harriet, Sabrina, and Cleo. And they met in college, and they lived together throughout college. And so they were kind of the first ones to form this friendship, and then they had other people come into their friend group along the way. And they were all quite different from each other, not just physically, like appearance-wise, but personality-wise. They're all quite different from each other, which I really liked. And I think that Emily Henry actually does a fantastic job, at least from this book, of creating really unique characters that are relatable, imperfect, and just unique, different from each other. I think she does a fantastic job of making each character relevant to the story and important in the story, because oftentimes in books and sometimes movies, TV, side characters are, sometimes we don't dive into that character so much. We don't learn about their family life, their interests. They're just kind of there to support the main character. But what I love is that this book, like, yes, it does center around Harriet and Win, but the other characters are just as important to this story as they are. And I just think she really, you know, we got background on a lot of the characters, and again, we got to know more of their family life, we got to know about their careers, and just different things that they've experienced throughout their lives that made them who they are. And I think that was really great. Again, she made them so relatable. All the like struggles that they may have gone through, mental health, different things like that, it's all so relatable. And I think people enjoy reading about characters like that because we can relate. You know, no one wants to read about a perfect character. I think no author would write about a perfect character, really. So she does a really great job of that. And I loved the dynamic between the friend group, like the banter, the back and forth banter, the way that they bounced off of each other. It felt like you were a part of their friend group. It felt like you were there with them. And that was so, so nice. It felt like you were in on this private like joke with this friend group. And it was just so nice. I loved that it was really funny. It was just so, so great. So I love the way she wrote the characters. I also think the setting is always obviously very important in any story. And the setting in this story was beautiful. We do bounce back. As I said, this goes from, you know, past to present. The present day takes place in Maine, which is, I think it's called Knott's Harbor or something like that. I could be completely wrong, but I think that's right. And then in the past, we bounce from like San Francisco to Montana to New York, I believe. But mainly this does take place in Maine. And the way that Emily Henry writes about these locations, but especially Maine, just makes it sound so magical. I think I've been to Maine, but I was really little, so I don't really remember it, but it sounds so magical, and it just sounds like such a lovely place that you'd want to go, and you could just picture everything she was writing about so perfectly. So I just think she does a phenomenal job of including details and making you feel like you are truly immersed into the story. Okay, so I took a look at my notes and I realized that I don't want to bounce back and forth between what I liked, what I didn't like. I want to finish what I liked about it. But in order for me to do that, I'm going to have to give some spoilers. So unfortunately, if you haven't read this book, you may want to turn it off now, but please come back and finish it afterwards, and we can chat about it, we can comment about it, and tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. But for now, I'm about to get into spoilers, so turn off the video and come back soon. Alright, so yes, continuing on with things I liked about the book. So I'm going to read this one from here because I wrote, like, I'm telling you, my notes when I read a book are like paragraphs, like it's a whole other book right here, okay? So I felt sort of sad about Harriet's relationship with her family, but I also felt like it was very common, the way that she feels about them. She was never super close with her sister Eloise, I believe that was her name, and her parents sort of married, it sounded like more out of necessity than love. And so she also felt guilty for wishing her parents could have done more for her emotionally. She describes in the book that her parents were there for her financially and they really supported her goals and her career, but she always felt guilty about needing more from them emotionally. But I have a feeling many people in real life feel that way as well. And I like that in the end, she finally stood up for herself and told her parents about quitting her job and starting over with Win in Montana. I like that she listened to herself, because I even wrote down that, you know, all of her friends and Win were supporting her in that decision, but they couldn't make that decision for her. So I really loved that no one was pushing her one way or the other, and that even Win, who loved her, wasn't pushing her to come to Montana with him. She had to make that decision for herself, and eventually she did. Now her career change was quite different, and you know, I could understand why parents maybe would be concerned about her in that regard, but also having to trust her that she would make the right decision for herself. So I really liked that. Again, family relationships, this book just covered all kinds of relationships, which was so nice to read about. I also loved that throughout their breakup, Win spent the past 5 months with his family back in Montana, and he used that time to grow and better himself as a person. As we know, he was struggling with depression after losing his father, which I can't imagine the pain of losing a parent. And so, you know, I understand why that led to a depression, but I love that Emily Henry wrote about a male character who is working on his mental health. You know, he even mentions to Harriet that he started taking medicine to help him. So I really like that, because oftentimes there is an unfortunate, terrible stereotype, or it's not a stereotype, it is true, sorry, not a stereotype at all, that men don't typically get the help they need mentally, and they just struggle in silence. And it's kind of this toxic masculinity, like taboo thing that just shouldn't be, shouldn't exist, but many men, I think, feel that way. And I like that, even though she didn't really dive into the fact that he was getting help, I like that she mentioned that, because it shows that men can get the help they need mentally as well, and that it's not a taboo thing, it's really serious and important. So I like that she kind of touched on that, even though it was brief. I also really like that Win eventually opens up to Harriet about the work that he's been doing and how happy with it he is and how proud of it he is, and that he really feels like he's reached a good place in his life. And even throughout the book, he was mentioning that to Harriet, that he's happy, that he's doing well and he's doing good. And at the time that really kind of hurt her, I think, to hear, because she was like, we broke up and now all of a sudden he's good again, he's happy. That probably hurt her, but that's before she knew all of the details of what he was doing to be happy again. And it wasn't the fact that he was happy without her, but he was happy in general in his life, which is important, I think, before you're in a relationship, is to be happy with where you are and who you are as a person yourself. So those are some of the things that I liked about the book. There might be some more that I may have to go back to eventually, but for now, I have some things that I didn't love so much, but it doesn't mean I didn't like the book. It's just some things that I didn't love. So obviously throughout the book, we're trying to piece together why Harriet and Win broke up, and we really don't know until toward the end of the book. But the biggest thing that I think was so frustrating for me as a reader was that they broke up because of misunderstandings. It was miscommunication, it was avoiding each other. And that was so frustrating to read, although I'm sure it happens plenty in real life, because oftentimes people do avoid confrontation. I was always that person who didn't like confrontation, but sometimes you have to bring up things that make you uncomfortable in life, and these two were just kind of avoiding it. To be fair, Win was really struggling at that point with his depression because of his father, and Harriet was trying to give him space to get over it, but I think she gave him too much space, so it looked like neither of them cared. He was struggling mentally, she was worried about him, But again, trying to give him the space he needed, or at least she thought he needed, I guess wasn't what he needed, if that made any sense. But basically, they both weren't getting what they needed from each other at that point in their relationship. But to know they were together 8 years and they broke up over miscommunication, I was like, are you kidding me? But again, I could kind of understand how that could happen. I just feel like that happens a lot in life, and it's a shame. But if people don't say what they need to say, and ask for what they need in a relationship, then you're not gonna get it. I think ultimately their breakup was both of their faults, but again, like, it wasn't anything terrible that happened, but I just think they both could have done things differently. But you know, hindsight, I guess. And so the same is true for, oh yeah, the fight between the friends. So the big blow up fight that happened toward the end between, especially between Harriet, Cleo, and Sabrina. Oof. I was reading that part and I was like, yikes. Because again, it's the whole thing where people are not saying what they need to say. And you can't, again, I've learned this, but you can't expect people, even if they know you so well, you can't expect them to read your mind. If you're struggling with something or you need to bring up something that's bothering you, people cannot read your mind. No matter how long they've known you, no matter how much they love you, you have to say what you need to people, and the friends weren't doing that either. So, I have here, so yes, the big fight between the friends. They fought due to misunderstanding and feelings that they hadn't expressed to each other, which was frustrating. Oh, I just lost where I was. This fight could have been avoided, really, had they just talked about these things. But they all sort of blamed each other. Again, I think they all made mistakes in their friendship. Nobody is perfect. Sabrina was sort of the kind of person who, I don't know if you'd say bossy, but she really wanted to be in control of people and things, and she was opinionated and kind of bold in that way, but also quite, I think, sensitive too. So kind of like a hard exterior, soft interior. Cleo was being secretive for good reason. Obviously, we find out that she was pregnant, which was actually really a shock to me. I'll get into that later, but yeah, she was being secretive for a good reason, but it came across as her being, you know, like uninterested in their friendship. It came across as her not putting in effort anymore. And then Harriet distanced herself because she was embarrassed about the breakup and she was upset about it, which is understandable. And I think, again, embarrassed. She didn't want to have to share that information with friends. Again, even though she knew they wouldn't judge her, even though she knew that they loved her, you know, I'd imagine that must be such a difficult position to be in. So she kind of distanced herself so that she wouldn't tell them, I guess. And again, it came across as her not being interested in their friendship. It came across as distancing herself, even though that wasn't really her true intention. Another thing I didn't love about the story, and I probably should have included this in the beginning of the video, it took me a long time to get into the book. So I read this in like 3 or 4 days, and it was really good. It's just, I felt like the whole kind of conflict and the turning point in the story, or the climax, took forever. I felt like, I don't even know what chapter it was when things started to really pick up and be like, okay, drama, this is happening. It took a while to get to that point. For the longest time, you know, we were getting some background on Harriet and Wynne from the past chapters, and then we were also seeing what's going on in the present. There was some awkwardness between them, some tension, of course. I think she wasn't expecting Wynne to be at the cottage because I think she thought he wasn't going to show. And then he realized, you know, it's their last trip they're going to be on together, so he came. She wasn't expecting him to be there, so, you know, I just feel like there was a lot of kind of background information and present information that just, it kind of went on, and I was waiting for something to happen. And then when the climax finally did happen and we find out it was just because of misunderstandings, it just kind of, I don't know, I think I was just hoping for something more, and I'm not entirely sure what I was hoping for, but it kind of dragged on a little bit in the beginning. And again, that's not to say it was a bad book. I just was hoping for something more sooner in the book, and it didn't happen till closer to the end. Another thing that I just had to mention, it's not necessarily something I didn't like about the book, but something I noticed, and again, maybe I'm just saying it because I'm the reader and I know that they aren't together anymore, but something that I wrote down here was that we only get a few glimpses, you know, in the happy place chapters, the past. We get a glimpse of what Harriet and Wynne were like together as a couple, but I didn't really kind of like see them as this lovey-dovey, touchy-feely type of couple. And so when they made the pact that they would pretend they were still together, not to ruin the trip or anything, I thought they would really sell it and like really act like they were in love, but I wasn't buying it. And again, I'm the reader, so maybe it's because I knew they weren't actually together, but I felt like if I were one of their friends and I were on that trip, I would have questioned it. I would have been like, this is kind of weird. And I don't know, you know, maybe they weren't really a lovey, touchy, feely couple, but they weren't selling it. I wish they kind of tried harder to make it look like they were together. But again, it's probably awkward and uncomfortable as well. But I don't know. I was hoping that they were going to be more convincing with it, but it wasn't super convincing. I felt like Win was also not the kind of male character that I was swooning over, because he seemed quite cold, especially in the beginning. And again, I'm sure they were both kind of hurt, but he just seemed quite cold. And I know we're only getting Harriet's point of view in this book, so we don't really know how he was feeling. We could imagine, but he just seemed really cold before they finally confronted each other. And so he wasn't the kind of male character that you're like swooning over. And yeah, I don't know. But then eventually I did feel really bad for him throughout the story. I forget where I wrote this down, but he was also the kind of character, he was very like self-deprecating, and he always talked down about himself, which was really sad to read, because he never felt smart enough or good enough. I felt like he kind of thought about himself that like he peaked in high school and that he wasn't good enough anymore, and that he was comparing himself to his sisters as well, and he wanted to succeed for his parents. Him and Harriet had that in common, I think. They really wanted to do, you know, to make their parents proud and their families proud. But yeah, I just felt really bad for him. I wish he was more confident in himself. But the same was true for Harriet. But again, these are like normal, natural human feelings. So again, yes, it makes them more relatable. I just wish he had more confidence in himself. And yeah, I wish we could have seen more of that. Now, this is something big that I did read like one review of this book once I was finished with it. But it was someone on Goodreads, I think. But I read this one review and I was like, wow, I kind of get that. And the person said, they brought up a great point. So they said throughout the story, they just wanted Win to fight for Harriet. And the whole time, but especially in the second half, like toward the end of the book, it's Harriet who's always putting in the effort. It's Harriet who's confronting him. It's Harriet that's running after him. Even when she was at the airport, like about to leave, she ran back for him, and you just really wanted him to kind of fight for her, and it just felt like he wasn't. Throughout the whole time, it was Harriet who was constantly, I think, fighting for him. So I do agree with that person who wrote that review. I wish that at least in the end he could have come to the airport for her instead of her running back for him. But because it just would have showed that he was as interested in kind of rekindling their relationship as she was. Or like, what am I trying to say? That he was going to put in as much effort as she was, but we just didn't really get that. It felt kind of one-sided. But again, at that point in the story, I did want them to be together. At that point, I was rooting for them, but it would have been nice for him to fight for her a bit instead of her doing kind of all the work. Okay, now on to just some last few like final thoughts. So Cleo's pregnancy, I was not expecting that. And what's funny is after she says that she was pregnant, I started to realize that it made sense, because earlier in the book, I think it was mentioned that she wasn't drinking, and there were little hints and clues throughout the book, but I just assumed she was someone like me who, like, I don't drink. To her friends, no one seemed to catch on that if she was a drinker, I don't know if they mentioned this, but if she did drink alcohol beforehand and then wasn't, none of her friends seemed to catch on. But I was really surprised, and then again, looking back, I was like, okay, that makes sense now. But yeah, and her going to sleep early, different, like there were little clues throughout the book that I just didn't realize until after, but I actually loved that. I loved that little surprise toward the end of the book, and it made me really happy. I don't know, I loved that. The other thing was, oh yeah, the surprise wedding. So this was earlier on in the book, but that was also a nice surprise that two of her friends were planning to get married at the end of this trip. And while there was kind of a fight again between them before the wedding, they still made it work, and they got married in the end, which was really, really sweet. So, and I think, was I wrong, or did they get married? No, I think they got married somewhere different to where Sabrina's parents did. But yeah, that whole part where, I loved the part where Harriet, after the huge blowout fight between the friends, that next morning she went to go get them all coffee, but she already found Cleo there at the coffee shop doing the same exact thing. That was really sweet. I kind of had a feeling that was going to happen, that she would run into Cleo, but that was a really cute point in the story as well. Like, I liked that even after everything they had said to each other and had kind of gotten a bit nasty toward each other, they were willing to make up the next day, and they did, and that was really, really sweet. And then them both finding Sabrina at the place where her parents got married. I loved that too, and the way they opened up to each other at that point. It was really sweet, because even though they had this, again, big blowout fight, the next day they were willing to kind of work through it, and they were calm. They had a night to rest on it, come back to each other, and be kinder with their words and just confront each other about what they were feeling. And they were honest, but in a nicer way than they were the night before. And I think this is my last point here that I was going to talk about, but I loved that the friends knew all along that her and Win were not together. I love that, because just as I was saying, like, throughout the book, I didn't even believe it. Throughout the book, I was like, these are not two people that are actually, like, together. And yeah, it seems the other characters knew that as well. So I think it was Cleo, maybe, who first told her that they all knew, or maybe Sabrina, I can't remember. But they, you know, one of the friends accidentally read one of the text messages that Win was supposed to send, or did send, to Harriet when they were broken up. But Harriet had blocked his number. So one of the friends read text messages kind of by accident. And then I forget how the other friends knew. Maybe the news just spread. I can't really remember. But either way, I think all of them knew. So that's also why none of them were questioning anything. Even if they, I don't know, like, none of them questioned it. Even though I'm sure they noticed that, okay, things are off between them for obvious reasons. They're broken up. But none of the friends questioned it. I think they just wanted to let them do their thing. You know, and get through that week together. But yeah, I liked when they all confronted her about it, and she was like, what? When? Like, how did you guys find out? But again, as a reader, and just because I didn't believe it, it was obvious to me. But yeah, I liked that part when they all kind of told her, actually, we knew. And these are a couple quotes from the book that I really liked. This is one of the most popular lines probably that Win said. He says, no, he says quietly, in every universe, it's you for me, even if it's not me for you. Loved that line. And then I like this one that Harriet says, my best friends taught me a new kind of quiet, the peaceful stillness of knowing one another so well you don't need to fill the space, and a new kind of loud, noise as a celebration, as the overflow of joy at being alive, here, now. I love that. That's a perfect like line about what real friendship is supposed to be. You know, it's the people you can be quiet with and not have anything to say, but you can still enjoy their company. But it's also the people who cheer you on the loudest, and you just have the loudest time, like, in celebration with. It's just, I loved that. And then I wasn't sure who said these lines. I may have to read them and then see. But this line says, things change, but we stretch and grow and make room for one another. Our love is a place we can always come back to, and it will be waiting, the same as it ever was. You belong here. Love, love, love. And then this one. I understood then the immense honor it is to hurt like she does, to have loved someone so much that the taste of maple syrup can make you cry and laugh at the same time. I think that was Harriet talking about Sabrina. So it's a very happy book, and in the end, she's back at her happy place, and yeah, it's a happy ending. It's the ending that I would have hoped for. So I definitely recommend this book. As I said, I think I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. It didn't blow me away, but I think, again, as I said, Emily Henry's books, they seem to be lighter, easier reads. A lot of people, I think, describe them as beach reads, as I know one of her book is called like Beach Read, I think. But that's what her books really are about. They're like summertime by the beach reading this book. I really enjoyed it, so I think you will too, and I can't wait to read more of her books. And as I said in my last book review, please leave me any recommendations you have. It doesn't necessarily have to be romance, but I do love a good love story. So thank you to Katie for recommending this book. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's not as long as my other one. I don't think it is, but I will try and keep my book reviews on the shorter side, like I said. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. I already ordered, like, I have 5 books that I have ordered just recently. 4 of them arrived today, 1 of them is coming soon, and I cannot wait to do more reading. And expect more book reviews and recaps from me from books I loved. If I read a book and didn't love it, I probably won't sit here and talk about it for like 20 minutes. But if it's a book I enjoyed, you can expect more book reviews and recaps from me in the future. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.